What's up, everyone? Welcome to the 42nd episode of the Balanced Business Podcast. We're inching closer to that 50. So super excited. Great topics today. Justine, Larissa, good morning. How are we feeling today?
Good morning. I didn't get my Starbucks this morning. I'm feeling it.
But
You
you
gotta
did
go
have
get it
14
later.
hours of sleep.
I
So,
got so much sleep, just no Starbucks.
well, don't worry. I got you. We're going to have such a great meeting. Justine, what are we talking about today?
Today, we're going to discuss how to use our website pixel and use it for retargeting ad campaigns and kind of comparing it to other platforms out there that you could use and why you should use ours. So let's start with explaining kind of how the pixel works and what it is.
Absolutely. So I'll actually jump in really quickly because there's been a lot of questions about like what a pixel is, and all it is a way to track people who come to a specific place on the internet, right? Cookies, pixels have always been around, especially for companies like Ask Jeeves and Google and all these early search engines, because it was a way for them to retarget. Because how do these search engines specifically make money? They make money mostly through advertising, right? And to do that, you actually have to be able to, and the advertisers really supposed to like run ads and be able to make money from traffic. And most people, especially now, require 5 to 15 times of interaction before they purchase a product, book a demo or something like that. And all the pixel really is a way to like identify who that person was and then retarget them. And it was really well, right? If you're just using Google, that works great. And you're just advertising there, that might be perfect. But more than likely, you're getting traffic from multiple platforms, social media, Google, in-person events. Maybe they're scanning a QR code and it's going to a landing page. There's just so many ways that people can actually find you on the internet. And it becomes kind of hard to be able to have, you know, a Facebook and Google Pixel both being able to share the same data on that person, because Google wants you to use their products like YouTube, like display ads. Facebook wants you to use their platforms like Facebook and Instagram. And there's no real bridge between someone coming from, let's say, a Google ad and having the ability to run a targeted YouTube ad against them, right? Or Facebook ad in this case. So all our pixel really does is bridges that gap and says, okay, here's the person, right? Here's the exact person, Joe Smith. Here's what advertisers use, whether it's their email, hash data, MD5, SHA-256 data, whatever that is. And if we want to run an ad campaign on Facebook because our retargeting is cheaper, great, we can do that now. It doesn't really matter where they came from. We just know that for every 100 people that we retarget, 50 of them become clients. And it's $1 on Facebook versus $10 on Google, right? Basically, we're saying now we bridge the gap. We can really own that data and be able to get that person into our sphere of influence, whether it's to buy something, book a call, download a PDF, whatever that is. Larissa, do you have any other ideas, closing remarks on that?
There are certainly a lot of big differences between our Pixel and then the Facebook Pixel and Google Pixel. And, most social media platforms will have a Pixel or some version of it, right? There's a lot of big differences to it. Like you mentioned, the biggest difference is that you own the base data that you then can allocate to those platforms as you see fit, as opposed to allowing the platforms to own the data and allow you to use it. Like there's a big difference there between you owning the data and utilizing it on those platforms versus Facebook, where, for example, you never actually even get to see who those people are. It's all de-identified. So you don't get to see who any of those people are. You just kind of have to blindly faith trust a lot of those other platforms. So that's one of the biggest differences.
Who is this pixel like best for? What type of agencies can benefit from this?
It's a really good question. So the answer is the answer that I hate answering is anyone that markets. But if more specifically, there are some agencies that see results a lot quicker, right? So for what I call money-driven agencies, which is probably the wrong way of phrasing it, but those who are focused on direct ROI, say SEO, PPC, advertising, right? Like those type of agencies, the pixel works really well because it does identify the majority of traffic that these pixels just don't get. And it really brings what most of these agencies are focused on, which is the leads, into the client's control. So let's say we're talking about SEO, for instance, right? An SEO agency helps mostly rank on Google, Bing, Yahoo, all these places. And that's great. But the average conversion rate for websites are anywhere between 1% to 3%. So let's say that before working with an SEO agency, you get 100 people to your site. That means you get 1 to 3 of them to, in this case, book a call. Now, if you go and get 200, that number doubles, which is great, right? That is really good. But you're still losing out on 97% of the traffic. With this type of pixel, you're able to get and identify, let's say an additional 10 to 40% of those people, get them into a very cost effective retargeting campaign, either through ads or email or giving them a call, and be able to then double, if not triple, the amount of leads after you've already doubled it. So, like, the numbers just make more sense for agencies like this, where you are increasing value, but there's still leakage, right, in the amount of leads that are being converted. So that's all we come into the fold, right? Like we come in there to plug these holes, vastly increase the value that you're bringing, not just in the SEO in this case that you're helping with, but in the amount of leads, which is honestly what they probably care about. They care about leads and sales.
How future proof is our pixel compared to other platforms?
Well,
Perfect
it
for you.
doesn't. So the recent iOS updates make a lot of pixels much less effective. The reason for that is because they're very dependent on cookies. So our pixel is not entirely dependent on cookies. We do use it some, but the base of our pixel and why it's actually so different is that it's all based on what's called an identity graph, which is essentially we take trillions of data points and match them all up and append them to basically have a very complete idea of who an individual is based on, anything from, let's say, financial data to social data to, geographic data, all of that. So we can tell basically everything about an individual. And then in comparison with other platforms, right, the biggest difference is they are all going to come from your website, and it does respect like privacy things. So like in terms of like future proofness, that's where you're not going to see, for most pixels that are on the market right now, they're mostly cookie based. So because of the recent iOS updates, it pretty much gets rid of cookies and it's going to send all of those out. However, when you have if you have something based on an identity graph, the likelihood that will be phased out is significantly lower, because it also is identifying devices and differentiating who uses what device when, and being able to parse out things like public computers and things like that. So hopefully that made sense, but the gist is it's not using cookies as its base, whereas all these other ones are.
Gotcha. Can we expand on kind of the process of putting the pixel on the website to going to a successful retargeting campaign and kind of the timeline of that?
Persa, as the one that mostly deals with this, because I know you have a lot of integration meetings around this with platforms like Webflow, Wix, ClickFunnels. Like, you got this.
Yeah. So putting it on your website is really simple. It takes less than 10 minutes, usually less than 5. The most difficult part typically is just finding the setting in your website where you can find your head code. Once you have that, you paste it in, you make it live, then you're pretty much good to go. In terms of turning that data into active and successful campaigns, that depends on what your business does and what your typical methods of outreach are. So a couple examples of things that we've seen be effective are, for example, if you're an e-commerce site and you want to reach out to all of the people who visited your site to ask if they would want to be on your newsletter. You still need to ask them to opt in, but it's a great way to grow your newsletter from somebody who's already been looking at your site. You can also use that data for, let's say, I'll just continue with the e-com example, right? If you're an e-commerce site and you want to run targeted ads against a singular product, you have all the data on who is, accessing which page most, and which pages also have high rates of looking at other pages. And you can kind of see the relationship between if I visit something for a notebook, am I also going to visit something for a mouse pad, right? Being able to kind of correlate those two is really important as well. But you can use that data for, okay, everybody who bought my notebook or everybody who looked at my notebook page, I see a strong correlation between that and my mouse pads. And I have a lot of mouse pads in stock. I want to sell those. I'm going to run targeted ads against my mouse pads for the people who bought the notebook because the data is showing me that like they might be interested. That's other ways you can do it. You know, and you can use that logic for anywhere, you know, on, let's say, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Twitter, wherever really you can run ads. So being able to have that kind of control over the ad aspect is really cool, that you can do it across every single platform. You can see them everywhere. You can also reach out to them on email, or if you want, you can find these people, and we have some people that they just use it as, you know, more informative, and then they reach out to those people by hand. They look them up on different social platforms and find them and reach out to them by hand one-on-one. There's so many different approaches that can be done with it. Some people use things like mailers and send those people, let's say, promotional emails. If you have like a car dealership who you see a lot of success from mailers anyway, you can add all these addresses into there and being able to go from there.
Cool. Well, those were all the questions I had. Do you guys have any other thoughts that we didn't touch on yet?
There's a couple things I do want to make sure we point out. One thing that's also different about this pixel is that in terms of identifying visitors, our pixel does respect, like if you have your privacy settings on in your browser, it's not going to be collecting your data. It's going to, and that's a simple like JavaScript thing, but it's going to be taking those out, and it's also not going to be identifying bots. So sometimes people will say like, oh, on Google Analytics, like I see my stuff is so much higher. And it's like, well, yeah, but we're not tracking anybody who has high privacy settings on. We're not tracking anybody who is like a bot who we can't identify. Like those are kind of key differences as well. That if you feel like your site has a lot of bots and has a lot of people with high traffic, you may not get a ton of data back from a pixel like ours, but the data you do get back is probably going to be much more useful, I suppose, than if you have a page that looks like it has really high traffic, but it's all bots.
Yeah, and the only thing I will add is like this is a untapped channel for most agencies and most people that use it. But with that being said, you can't just copy and paste things that have worked or not worked in other places, right? So like a lot of this data, right, especially on like the ads or email side, you need to tweak the copy to really give context to these people. Let's say that everyone, to Larissa's point, right, lands on a page specifically for a notebook, right? You don't want to run an ad for a car to them or for something that doesn't make sense to them, right? So you have this contextual data, and the mechanisms that you're using to connect with them should be contextualized to them, right? If you segment your list by just males and you have a landing page that you're sending people to that says, "Hey girls," I mean, might not be the best, right? So I mean, this goes for email too, right? So the biggest thing is like make sure that you're getting hyper contextual with your retargeting to these people, because you can waste a lot of money if you just throw these leads into something that probably isn't maybe working right now super well. So definitely like take this data with a different sense of urgency, because these are warm leads. These are people that are like in market right now, and waiting a week, a month, a year to do something with them, the data and the leads will start losing their value almost instantly, because our attention spans are a lot shorter nowadays than they used to be. And I mean, I'm just, as the oldest one here, I can't really speak to anything about like back before the internet. So that's just what I hear people say who are more seasoned than I am. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for listening. If you have any questions, as always, nico@getboundlessmedia.com, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, our website, getboundlessmedia.com. Always here to answer questions and help your agency scale and grow without adding much complexity to that mix. You guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll talk real soon. Peace.